Hello, it's Martha Mertz.
Hi, Martha. It's Ray. Hi. Welcome.
Hi.
So
How
glad
nice
we get a
to
chance
be with
to do
this. Yeah.
I know you've been busy, so we'll just sort of jump in, if you don't mind.
Okay.
I just want to let everybody know who's going to be listening to this call. This is Martha Mertz, the author of Being Athena, 8 Principles of Enlightened Leadership, and the founder of Athena International. So welcome, Martha.
I feel very welcome. Thank you. Lovely to be here.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad we can do this and really get a chance to talk. I met Martha a number of years ago at an Athena Awards program in Chicago, and I met her. I met Sue Ellen Allen, who is actually going to be featured in my new book, and I realized I interviewed Diane Dinkle as well. So I'm getting all Athena today. So
that's great.
Why don't we just start talking about you and leadership and why you're interested in it and how it came to be. What do you think of as a great leader?
Great question. I think that my interest in leadership, when I started trying to delve back into why am I passionate about this topic, was really being the second daughter among 4 children, and the next child my parents had was their one son. And I could see from early on, age 3, that there was just a difference in how the society, including my own family, viewed the importance of gender and the superiority of the male over the female. And I think as a little girl, I did everything with my father. I was his gopher young girl, and I loved the work that he was doing, and I less liked to be stuck in the kitchen stirring the pudding. So I think that I started along at the earliest stages recognizing that real opportunities and the world, actually the size and scope of the world was much greater at that time for men, and I wanted to make that change. I wanted to see the world open up so that girls could be capable and invited into doing the same kinds of things that my lovely younger brother was invited to do.
Wow. In your own personal life, how were you a leader then growing up and taking that forward? Obviously you recognized this early. So were you a leader, like in Girl Scouts or, in school or?
Yeah, my brother reminded me recently that I gave flying lessons when I was maybe about 9, that I would line up the neighborhood kids, and we had certain things that we did in order to jump off a little wall, and that was what we considered to be flying, and everybody just loved doing that. We all lined up, and, I was the one that came up with the formula and the plan. Maybe that was the first time that I think that I actually did something that you could call leadership, but I don't think that I was necessarily more of a leader than anyone else. I just was passionate about things, and as I came into my adult years, I learned that I wanted to accomplish something, and so I would start off on that track. And even if women hadn't been there before, that didn't matter. If I wanted to learn how to do it, and I thought I was capable, then I would proceed to do something. And leadership is, it's something that we grow into, that we learn about. We learn about ourselves and what we're capable of and what we're passionate about, and then we take the steps. And I think that's probably what happened to me and what happens to many, many people.
So let's talk about, there's 2 things I've got a million ideas running through my brain to have a conversation about. One of them is the 8 principles. How did that come about? Mm-hmm. And how are they in your own life? How do you use them? And especially, I'm into creativity and giving back and advocacy. And so it was like when I read those 8 principles, I was like amazed. So why don't we talk about that a little bit?
I would love to. So many years ago, in order to try and open up the perception of women in the community in which I lived, which was the middle of Michigan, I was appointed to and accepted a position on the Chamber of Commerce board there, and I was the only woman at the table. And so as time went on, after I learned to find my own voice there, I decided that the organization would be much better served if there were other women on that board. So I asked my male colleagues to accept a few nominees that I brought to the table, and they told me that women weren't leaders. This is how these 8 principles got started, because I realized that my colleagues didn't see women as leaders, and frankly, we didn't see ourselves that way either. So that's where the Athena Award came in, and it came in so that from that organization, there would be one outstanding example of a woman who was a leader from the community honored every year. And we called that the Athena Award, and it started almost now 35 years ago, and it grew from Lansing to all over the country and beyond. So it was an idea that was worth doing at the time, and it resonated in all of these different places. But I would often, as the founder of Athena, be invited to award events, and the whole community would show up, and people would be giving this new recipient a standing ovation, and the first thing I would hear her say was, "I don't really see myself as a leader." And the first time I heard that, I thought it was massively humble. But after the 4th or 5th time, I thought to myself, something else is being said here. These women are effective as leaders. They've been selected out of the entire community, but they're not following the standard leadership model. So we studied them. We studied 400 Athena recipients from across the country, and we found 8 strengths that these women were bringing to leadership that weren't necessarily part of the leadership lexicon at the time. And that's where these principles come from. And they're drawn from women, but they're for everyone. And they are essential, not just how to be a leader. It's not a how-to paradigm at all. It's a how to be some kind of person, how to be the person that you want to be, and from there you develop your leadership. And you have it, Ray.
Thank you.
You have figured these out, and you know what, because you are an authentic leader, you know you draw from your own strengths, and that's what these principles do.
Thank you. So do you want to talk about a couple of the principles so that people get a better understanding of what they are?
I would love to, and I'll start with the one that I consider to be the most important for any leader, and that is to live authentically, which really means that a person is true to themselves. You know what your values are, and you recognize that you are living your values. So to just put that into perspective, if you say one thing, that you value this and this is what you want, but you do something else, then you will not inspire people. People can see right through that kind of activity. So a strong leader is someone who knows their own values and represents those values in the way that they operate in the world. And
do you have any tips for people who, when they hear the word authentic, sometimes people are like, ew, what is that? And
yeah.
Do you have any suggestions how they can get to that place? I'm always about tips and tools, so
yeah.
kind of things. So,
well, I think that the most important way to get to one's authenticity is to maybe spend a little time by yourself. Knowing, listing, what do I value? And really just kind of meditating on what are the things that I value and how closely am I aligning my life every single day, decisions I make, the way I behave, how closely am I aligning myself and what I do to what I value. And it's a thing that keeps going in your life. You don't just get there and then you have achieved that, because we keep changing as people. So, and our positions change, and the importance of our decisions change. And so I think it's always important for a person, no matter what their position, to spend a little quiet time recognizing who am I now and what am I valuing and how am I living those values.
Okay. I would love to talk about creativity and advocacy, and if we could talk a little bit about those, because those are two things that obviously are on top of my values. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me start with advocating, because I think that certainly we found that in the leaders that we studied, that the people who really grasp their leadership become advocates for something. They're passionate about something that is important to them in their life. And any opportunity they have to contribute toward advancing that area that they're passionate about, they will take, and they will step into it in whatever way it is possible at the time. So I'll just speak for myself, my passion was opening leadership opportunities for women. And you can do those in small ways. If somebody asks me to serve on a board, for instance, and I didn't have the time to give to that, I would find another woman whom they might not have thought about, but for whom that would be an opportunity to become visible and to have a seat at the table. It's that was my passion. You have your passion, and it has to do with activism and being creative in being an activist. And so every opportunity that you have, small or large, that you see that comes along, you make an opening for that, and you advance in whatever way possible your passion. And people
Thank
do
you.
it with, if they're interested in.
I love the way you say it's in small places as well as large movements, because I think too often there's this idea out there that, well, what can I do as one person to affect change? What's going to happen? And people don't realize that by just sharing your passion, whether it's, maybe you love the sequoia trees, and so you decide you're going to plant a tree, and then you tell your neighbor you did that, and they said, wow, that's a really cool project with my kids. Maybe I'll do that with them. And then somebody down the block saw what you're doing, and it is just amazing what can happen, but we don't realize it because half the time we don't share what we're passionate about. So I love the fact that you said that.
Well, and what you've just said is so good, because leadership doesn't just come in these big packages with big titles and headlines. It comes in small ways, and planting a tree and watering it and making sure that it grows, and then telling other people about the benefits of trees is a wonderful leadership strength that someone takes. You take an initiative. It isn't going to be a headline. People don't necessarily work for headlines or for titles or positions. I think leadership starts in small ways, and it can build to something else, but it really is fueled by the care and devotion and interest and focus that you have for something that matters to you in your life. And it can come from, maybe you saw trees being cut down when you were young and you thought that was horrible. Or maybe somebody treated you in a way that wasn't the best way or treated an animal in a way. And so your passion or your focus gets planted in some circumstance, experience in your life, and then you just take it from there. And we all have some powerful thing to give back to the world. We all have something, a place to leave a different legacy. And again, almost always they start small.
I love that. I love just how you phrased it beautifully. That's it. I think that's the key to changing the world. If we each recognize that we have this influence and this impact by just doing one small thing every day, it changes everybody and everything around us, because I do believe in this energy field that we sort of carry around with us. So I love that. So thank you.
I'll just speak about one more principle before we move on, and we touched upon it, both of us did, and that is the idea of giving back, because every leader has a devotion to making a difference, some kind of difference in the world, that you leave the world a better place than it was as you came along. So it's giving your voice and your position and your resources, small and large, in ways that make the world a better place. Leaving a different legacy. That's another mark of a powerful leader.
I love that. Going back to what you said before, when you studied these 400 women, how many of them actually did say that they were a leader? When I interviewed a lot of the people, I've interviewed probably about 140 now people around the country, and I would say it's pretty evenly divided. That half say I'm not a leader, and yet I'm amazed at the work they're doing in the world. So
exactly.
I'm just curious.
You have to remember that this survey was done probably 16 or 17 years ago, and I think times have changed. Our worldview now of women in high positions, fully capable of weighty responsibilities, has changed and is currently changing. So the more role models that we see of people who are in leadership positions doing things that we admire, the more likely it is that our youngsters will grow up seeing that there is opportunity and potential for everyone, regardless of their gender, of where they came from, of what their accent is, regardless of all of those things, that everyone has an opportunity to become the best that they're possibly capable of being. And I think that's what leadership is. Again, it doesn't have to be a high degree of celebration. Teaching 9-year-old kids to jump off a wall and calling it flying, it was my way of learning how to lead in one little place.
I saw that Marlo Thomas won the award one of the awards this year as and how do you choose the people that you have celebrated with this award?
There are now over 7,000 Athena recipients, both the global recipient, the national recipients, and the local recipients. So the selections are made in the locality that that award is given. So Phoenix, for instance, has had an Athena Award for nearly 30 years. The selection committee is a group of local people, and what they look at are three things, and they're all the same. So the local people use these three criteria to select an Athena recipient, and these are the criteria. A person has to have reached the highest level of professional excellence. It doesn't matter what the field is, but they need to have achieved professional excellence. And the second benchmark is that they have to have given back to their community in some way, so that it isn't all about what comes to them in terms of success. It's also what they do from that platform to make the community better. And the third is that these are people who will have opened leadership opportunities for others, especially for women, because that's where we were out of balance to begin with. And so in order to get into balance, we need to help lift others, particularly women, any opportunity that we have. And just finally, I'll say to you, Ray, that Athena Awards are not just for women. We have women and men who have been Athena recipients for those same three criteria.
I love that. So talk about some of the educational opportunities and how, about the Athena PowerLink kind of thing, where people are coming together to help each other and how that is working.
Athena PowerLink is one of the programs that Athena International, which is a nonprofit organization, has started over the years. And it's a wonderful program because what it does, there will be a selection of a woman-owned business in a community, And that person will be given, at no cost to themselves, for the period of a year, an advisory board made up of people whose expertise that particular business might need. So let's just say that you're a journalist and you're a writer for a newspaper, and you've started a newspaper. So the board that would be selected for you would be made up of an attorney. As a business, you're going to need an attorney. Another person would be an accountant. You might need a marketing and PR person to help you understand how best to reach your market. You might need a creative writer of some sort as a specific capability so that you could enhance your skills in that area. You might need a banker because you've got financial responsibilities and so on. So that's what Athena PowerLink does. For the period of a year, someone has the access to the kinds of expertise and high professional capabilities that lots of women, oftentimes who have started companies, aren't willing to afford. What we learned was that women will buy tangible things. So they'll spend $1,000 or $2,000 on a computer and the software they need, but they almost never will pick up the phone and ask for legal advice, and because it's not tangible. And so this is a way to provide what they haven't been providing for themselves, and to help build their businesses. And PowerLink has been just a phenomenally successful program, and it's something that would be in your community or not. But if people are interested in Athena PowerLink and it isn't available in their community, they should get in touch with Athena International and find out about that program. It's just the success capabilities of Athena PowerLink has been just phenomenal. Everyone who's gone through an Athena PowerLink program and had the benefit of that year of professional expertise at their fingertips has just grown in leaps and bounds.
I love it. So
yeah, I wish I would have had that when I was pardon me?
I was going to say, what are you working on now for yourself? What are you doing for yourself? I know you sort of step back in the the foundation, and so what are you doing for you?
Well, what I've been very busy because I have such a profound interest in this leadership model. So a couple of years ago, I had a person, in fact, you mentioned her, Sue Ellen Allen, who is, I'll just give it to you from my perspective. I was at an early morning meeting, and this perky redhead popped up in front of me and said, "Hi, my name is Sue Ellen Allen. I just got out of prison. I know your leadership model. I would like to have you take it to prison and teach it there." And, of course, what we had been doing with this model is teaching it to women who are fairly successful, aspiring leaders, and I'd never thought about taking it to prison. So in the last 4 years, we've worked on that, and we now have a very successful program in a prison near Phoenix. It is something that could be taken to other places across the country, and what I've seen is that these women are so hungry for empowerment and for the opportunity to learn about themselves and from a very basic level, and it's making a huge difference in terms of recidivism rates. The women that we're teaching this model to don't come back to prison, and so I've just shifted my focus from the global perspective of women and leaders to this prison project as a pilot program to see what happens when you take it to an entirely different population. And you know what? You work so hard as a creative activist. Well, I consider this to be a very creative way of using this model in a place that one wouldn't have ever considered even going. But it is changing lives in very visible, phenomenal ways. So,
well, and it only took one person coming up to you and saying, "I like this. Can you help me?" And I think that's the piece that we have to remember. There are so many resources out there, and there are people who are willing, like you, to collaborate, to connect, to share their expertise, and that's really important. I think that is one of the things that makes you a successful leader is when you know how to reach out and ask for that help.
Exactly. And I think that it doesn't matter what our platform is, that there's always the chance to do something that makes a difference. And again, maybe one of the themes of this conversation today is that it doesn't have to be big in order to be important.
What a great line.
Yeah, and it's true. It's even I have another one that's kind of sort of that is like that in a way, and it has to do with courage, because acting courageously is something that every leader has to be faced with, a moment when it's going to take courage to stand within their truth and to speak out. But courage, we think of it as something that's sort of like roaring like a lion. But there's a statement by a woman, I think her name is Marianne Rademacher, and she said, "Courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it is the little voice that I hear at the end of a day that says, I didn't get to that today, but I'm going to try again tomorrow."
Right. I love it.
So, and that in its small way is also important. You know, it doesn't always take that giant leap of doing something. It's just continuing on because you believe the direction that you're going is where you need to be stepping.
Thank you. That was beautiful. So, as I always love it when I'm talking to somebody, conversations, you never know where they're going to go, no matter what when you think about the questions you're going to ask, the conversations, they're always gems. And there's something so special about this conversation with you, and it feels so intimate and personal, and I love it. So thank you. Just a couple more questions.
Okay.
What is the legacy that you would like to leave personally?
That's a really good one. I think that from my perspective now, I would like to have had a hand in changing the definition of leadership so that when people think of leadership, they don't always think of the high title and the high position and the commanding role, that they think of leadership as having the ability to be a great listener, to always be open to learning, to being interested and devoted to building relationships with people and collaborating across differences, so that when you form your opinion about something, that you've taken other people's opinion into consideration. When you approach a decision, that you try to get as much of a 360-degree perspective as is possible, so that it isn't just all from your own perspective, but it's taking into account all the other people's opinions who will be affected by the decision that you make. And so changing the definition of leadership to include the ways that we have found the strengths that women bring, that would be the legacy that I would like to leave. And it certainly wouldn't just be me. That's everything is a collaboration, everything in the world. And one of the things that women do is that they don't need to claim the full responsibility and credit for something. This is a group effort. Life is a group effort, and leadership is definitely a group effort. So if you've managed to inspire one person to plant a tree or do whatever it is that you're passionate about, then that can grow from there, and the ripples from your actions, you might never even know what they are. You might never even know the impact of what you've done, but that's okay. It doesn't matter if it's for the good. Then you need to know that that's leadership.
That was beautiful. And I have one more question. Just who inspires you today? What leaders are out there that inspire you?
Wow. I'm inspired by you. I'm inspired because you're seeking to learn and to share this very important information. I'm inspired by people who don't have a platform but are working very hard to just make it through their own barriers and difficulties. I'm incredibly inspired by girls in parts of the world who aren't given access to education, and in spite of that, they yearn for that, and they dare to try and become educated. I'm inspired by the doctors and nurses who help bring health to people who don't necessarily have it. Anyone who is trying to find their own voice and manages to understand who they are and what they want to do and what they care deeply about, I'm inspired by all of those people. And most of them will never meet or know, and it doesn't matter. Their efforts are what really changes the world, and that's very inspiring.